All right, we're going to get started here, and first off, I'd like to have the county administrator please take the roll.
Yes, first, Commissioners, I'll start with our staff support today. We have on my left Laura Zentner, the Director of Business and Community Services, Scott Archer, the Director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, Jeff Munns, County Counsel, Kevin Moss, Clerk to the Board. With that, roll call. Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here. Please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation Special Meeting. I am Clackamas County Chair Jim Bernard. Just a quick overview of today's proceedings. We will meet first as the Board of Directors of NCPRD for the purpose of taking public testimony on the proposed settlement between North Clackamas Parks and Recreation and the City of Happy Valley. We'll then close the public hearing and vote on the settlement, and after that we will switch hats and vote on the settlement as a Board of County Commissioners. But before we get started today, I'd like to thank, on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, I'd like to thank Representative Mark Meek, who wasn't here, wasn't able to make it tonight, but I believe his staff is. What's your name?
Colette Zipper.
Thank you for coming. And also, I'd like to thank Janelle Bynum for coordinating the recent concluded statement. Coordinating the recent concluded settlement talks with Happy Valley. This is an agreement that brings an end to litigation. Work diligently to support a joint legislative agreement upon a settlement, and we will work with our partners in the legislature to get it passed during the short session that starts early next year. I also want to thank staff from Happy Valley, NCPRD, and county staff for their hard work throughout the process and for their hard work in bringing the issue to a successful conclusion. And now we will go on to our agenda item today, and we will open again as the Board of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District for the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
For the record, it is State Representative Janelle Bynum.
What did I say?
You forgot the title, sir.
Oh, sorry. All right, so I'm trying to figure out where the public hearing part of this goes.
It's right now, Chair. I can announce that for you.
Okay.
So our first item today, Commissioners, is a public hearing, approval of a settlement agreement between the City of Happy Valley and the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. We have Jeff Munns, Assistant County Counsel, and Scott Archer, Director of the District, to present.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Chair Bernard and board members. Before I turn it over to Mr. Munns with County Counsel to review the key terms in the settlement agreement, I'd like to give you just a brief summary of the background on why we're here at this point, as well as maybe for the benefit of the listening public. When NCPRD was originally formed by a vote of its residents in 1990, the City of Happy Valley at that time chose not to participate in the formation vote, and thus they were not part of the original district boundaries. However, in 2006, the city decided that it desired to join the district, and it was annexed into NCPRD by a vote of its city residents. This annexation process was guided by an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, between the city and the district. That IGA was updated and amended over the course of time, and it spelled out a number of details related to the city's annexation, including provision of services, as well as development of capital projects within the city. In the time since joining, the city has experienced, as we all know, significant growth. And in 2017, Happy Valley City Council took action declaring its intent to withdraw from NCPRD and provide its own parks and recreation services to residents. While NCPRD would love to continue providing parks and rec services to the city residents, we've always understood the city's desire to be its own provider since they made that intention known. Unfortunately, the withdrawal process, as well as disagreement between the district and the city regarding some of the terms in the IGA, have created a complex and ongoing legal situation, and those have been going on since 2017. As you are well aware, this has led us to the point of litigation between the two parties. The settlement agreement before you today for consideration will resolve all of these legal disputes, and it provides that the city and the district will work cooperatively in the coming 2020 session, which will allow the city's withdrawal from NCPRD. The uncertainty created by this situation over the past about 2.5 years or so has made it challenging for NCPRD to plan projects, to plan for services, and just to do our general business. So bringing closure to these matters provides us, the district, with certainty in our operations and our provisions of services, and it allows the district to focus on important projects for our residents, including things such as developing the Concord property, the Milwaukee Bay Park project, and planning for new parks in underserved portions of the district. This settlement also allows you, our elected board, and the appointed residents comprising the district advisory board, the opportunity to move forward in the collective, regular, ongoing work to help meet the needs of our NCPRD community members. Likewise, the settlement clears the way for the city to do the same. We share the same goal of best serving our collective residents, and this agreement allows both parties to turn the page and move forward in the shared focus of building new parks and facilities and providing great recreation programs and services to each of our respective residents. I'd like to say that NCPRD has been honored to serve the residents of the city of Happy Valley since joining the district. And we look forward to a smooth transition of parks and recreation services over the coming months, assuming that this agreement is ratified. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant County Counsel Jeff Munz, who will walk you through some of the details of the agreement.
Thank you. Yes, the key portions of this agreement are to work together. One of the key portions is to work together with the city jointly on legislation that will remove Happy Valley from the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District during the legislative session here coming up in 2020. If that legislation is adopted, then the district would pay $14.3 million of SDC's funds to the city of Happy Valley. We'd also transfer 6 park properties to the city of Happy Valley, and those would be Southern Lights Park, Village Green Park, Ashley Meadows Park, and parcels of Mount Talbot Nature Park that are owned by NCPRD that are within the city will also be transferred, along with Mount Scott Creek Trail and Hidden Falls Nature Park. Another term of this agreement is that as the city grows and annexes property that is currently, that would remain within the district, they would not withdraw that property from the district. And so after the city of Happy Valley is removed from North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District by this legislation, then that boundary of NCPRD that is within Zone 3 of the district, that area within the Happy Valley Urban Growth Management Area, would remain in the district. But the parties also agreed that after 5 years from this initial withdrawal, that they would revisit this term and discuss future relations working together on those matters, but that the agreement is that park property would remain in the district at that point. The territory would remain in the district, rather, after the city is withdrawn. And those are the key terms of this agreement. Other portions in the settlement agreement just deal with timing of this and working with the legislation, and that the legislation be enacted as an emergency measure so that it is enacted or is effective immediately, and that when the payments and the transfers of the property would occur. Other than that, I don't have anything further regarding the terms, but if I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions? With that, we'll open the public hearing, and I guess you have a list of people who'd like to testify.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start with the staff from Representative Meek's office, followed by Ms. Thelma Hagan-Miller.
This is a statement from Representative Meek. Dear Board of County Commissioners, unfortunately, I am not able to attend tonight's important hearing due to a scheduling conflict, so I have sent my staff member to express my unequivocal support for the settlement agreement that has been reached between Happy Valley and the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I was proud to have had a role in facilitating the settlement process between both parties, and I want to thank you and the City of Happy Valley for engaging in meaningful negotiations toward a productive outcome. Residents of the Parks District can also be proud of this agreement. It protects the district's borders, it lifts the unpredictability of legal outcomes, and it provides the district certainty in planning for future operations. I pledge to work collaboratively with both parties to draft and win approval of legislation that protects the interests of all NCPRD residents and ensures a thriving Parks District that will serve future generations. Thank you also to my colleague Janelle Bynum for taking a leadership role in bringing both parties together and steering the process to a successful resolution. Finally, I urge all of you in attendance tonight to support the settlement agreement and to participate in the community listening sessions early next year about the future of the district.
Thank you very much. Thelma?
And then after Thelma, Representative Bynum, would you like to speak on this as well? Okay.
Thank you for coming tonight, Thelma.
My name is Thelma Hagan Miller. I am a resident of unincorporated Oak Grove and one of the people responsible for the safe spine that runs through our community, known as the Trolley Trail. I speak for a lot of citizens when I say that we think it is ridiculous that one government entity end up suing another government entity. And I am pleased to hear that this is finally going to come to an end, because this is totally a waste of our taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next we have Mr. Grover Bornefeld and Mr. Chris Hawes. All right. Ms. Kelly Brooks from the City of Milwaukee after Mr. Bornefeld.
So, Commissioners and trusted staff, my name is Grover Jeffrey Bornefeld, and I live in Jennings Lodge. I lived there for the last 28 years, and I'm a proud participant in Clackamas County and multiple areas that matter to me. I'm blessed to be retired now and have the time to use what I used to do in the other world to support my community. I most importantly want to be clear that I'm here representing myself as an unincorporated Clackamas County taxpayer, but I want to speak to the issues of taxpayers in general throughout Clackamas County. I'm in favor of our ability to stop spending money on legal defenses and legal fees, et cetera, having been through that in multiple places in my time living in this county and elsewhere. I think it's just not a good use of taxpayer dollars, and I'm glad we have an opportunity to move beyond that. In addition, the actual ability to move on, because I do participate in things around the Parks Department, and we've been hogtied and not able to move forward. So I'm happy that that's coming forward. What I want to speak to, and actually we want to ask a question around the issue of the money. I'm not clear. Again, as a taxpayer, I do believe that the whole $14.3 million is made up of money that was at one time collected from Happy Valley residents, and it was collected with the promise that it would be used for parks. And that's the part I want to find out, how that money, assuming this all goes through as planned, that $14.3 million, is it in fact going to be spent as the taxpayers gave it or not? So that's my first question, and I don't expect an answer this minute, but I think that's, as the public, we deserve to know that. And then the second question is, there's been a lot of, I appreciate the fact that we're keeping the people living in unincorporated, the people who live in unincorporated and are not in Happy Valley now, that they still will be able to receive NCPRD services that they've been paying for and will continue to be paying for. And I'm glad that they are getting that, and I'm glad we're looking out for them as opposed to having them live in this maybe zone that they may someday be part of Happy Valley, et cetera. And then the last thing I want to talk about is where did the citizen input get put into this? I mean, is there, because in all the reading I read, there's nothing about that there's going to be in some part of the settlement or whatever until we get done. Is the voter public who's being taxed to pay for all this in any way going to have anything to say about it? That's a question that I would like to, as a taxpayer, have be addressed. It hasn't been in any of the materials I've seen, so it's important to me that the taxpayers' money is being used as given, so it will ultimately be used for parks in Happy Valley, assume that all plays out. And the second part is, will the taxpayers have anything to say about this? Because they're the ones that actually formed the district and have been paying into the district. And on that, I'm looking forward to having it unfold, but I think there's some questions that need to be answered that are not included in the materials. Thank you. Can somebody answer, or should I just walk away?
Do we want to answer those questions tonight? Are you ready to answer questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I believe he's asking, will the $14.3 million, which will go to Happy Valley, be spent in Happy Valley on parks?
Correct.
Which I believe is a question that would have to be addressed to the leadership of Happy Valley. I don't believe we're in a position to answer that question because we cannot direct them.
Okay, well,
I don't know if that's included in the legal documents or not.
to clarify though, just so we know, I'm under the understanding that the $14.3 million came from people who live in Happy Valley, and it came for the purpose of supporting parks, and it went through NCPRD and other places, and now it's going back to Happy Valley. I think that tag belongs on it. That's what the taxpayers paid the money in for. So that's the question I have. And thank you for pointing out that unclarity.
Yeah. So with that clarification, I can certainly take a stab at hopefully answering the question. Of the cash in the settlement agreement, the $14.3 million, here is what we know. 9.3 million of that is in a separate account right now that was collected from Zone 3 and specifically is attributed to funds that came from within the city limits of Happy Valley. So that's been set aside, if you will, already. The remaining $5 million of that, we are attributing all of that to money that was originally generated from within Happy Valley. It is going to come out of the Hoodview Park sale proceeds that we have in the bank, but we have attributed $2 million of that was a direct gift or donation, or whatever the right term might be, from the city to Hoodview Parks Development. So that $2 million right there is going back. And then the remaining $3 million we are attributing to the district-wide component of SDCs collected within Zone 3 and specifically within the boundaries of Happy Valley. So all of the $14.3 million is attributed to funds that came from within the city limits of Happy Valley.
Taxpayers within the cities. That's the part I want to keep going back to. There is no Happy Valley money, there's no NCPRD money, it is taxpayer money, or it came from a grant or whatever.
You're right.
Cool.
I'm not sure that's, an SDC is really not a tax.
Okay, good. It's a
So-
fee.
So, very little of that money, maybe the 2 million that was contributed at the beginning might be perhaps, was it SDC? So it was all SDC, so none of it was tax money.
Good, and thank you for that clarification. To the fact of me it's tax or not, it is that people paid it in for a particular purpose. SDCs, we're only talking about SDCs for parks, so this was SDCs for parks. It wasn't SDCs for roads or SDCs for schools, so I appreciate it, and I was incorrect calling it tax.
Right, and there's that methodology or those covenants of those SDCs are, in writing and spelled out. So I'm assuming they get transfers with that as well.
That is the question. Do they in fact get, and it won't be up to this body after it goes, it'll be up to who's watching where the money goes. Okay.
For the public's information, explain what an SDC is.
System development charge. If you build something, you pay for schools, roads, parks, and assorted other things. And it's part of doing business.
And the law requires that SDCs paid for the purpose of which they were collected.
Correct. And it's just that it passed through, but it was all in Parks work that it was used, and now it's being returned, and that's where my concern is. Thank you.
Can I answer the second part of the
Yes,
question?
go ahead.
So Grover, the second part of your question about
Yes.
public input.
Yes.
You know,
voting.
unfortunately, when litigation happens, that it happens in executive sessions and without public input. But there is a settlement proposal, which is now public, and you are here commenting on that, and whoever else is here is also providing public input, which we absolutely are interested in hearing. And then the other part of the public process is that there is a bill that, and we have Representative Bynum here and Representative Meek that have been working on this. If there is other input, this is all contingent on the bill passing at the legislature. So we're hoping that we can put an end to all of this and move on and look to the future, but there is still a public process, so I want to make sure that you know that.
I appreciate it. And the public process is going to be, a bill is going to be written, and it'll be voted on by not citizens, not voting people, but the people in the
Our
legislature.
representatives in the legislature.
Exactly. And I wanted to know, where is the part to include, we had to vote to get into this and set up this district, and then to have people pulling out of it. The people from Happy Valley had to vote to get into it. They had to decide they wanted to do it. So it's just, is there somewhere in there, because it is, again, it's one of those things that's silent in all the writing. It doesn't get mentioned that it's going to happen or not happen, and that's what I wanted to clarify.
Well, yeah, we can, Paul, did you want to take that, the answer?
I would actually ask staff to respond, because I think we understand what that is, and maybe Mr. Barnfeld deserves an explanation for that.
Well, I think that what thank you. Commissioner Fisher just answered was about the process for the settlement. I think that part of the dispute was, how does the city properly withdraw from North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District? And so in this process, that was one half the litigation that's at the Court of Appeals, and there's another case that's now at the Court of Appeals as well. And the settlement avoids further litigation on all those matters. And that way, we're looking to solve this problem through our joint agreement, as well as working with the legislature to craft an arrangement that works for all the parties. And then you'll have the opportunity, with working with the legislators, to have your concerns heard and work with them on the final form of that legislation through that process. But we're working to resolve this process through a settlement and then legislation.
True. And I appreciate the showing the various component parts of this process, but this process still is taking SDC, but non-government money that was paid in for a specific purpose, and then following it through to the end. And I do want to know, even being able to tax that money or take that money, or having those SDCs, somebody had to decide that that's the way they were going to do it. And so for taxes, voters had to vote to form the district, voters had to vote for Happy Valley to come into the district, voters had to vote. And here, this decision, pretty significant decision, is being done without individual input other than comments.
Well, again, I think that, as we talked about, the funds are SDCs, and so they'll retain that form and then go back to the city. Then
But
the
this
city
is the
would have
voting part
opportunity.
about whether
Thank
whether
you.
we're approving it or not, and what's going to come out in that legislative part, and we don't have any. So I just want to know, as a citizen, I care about this, and I want to be included in it, as opposed to, well, these people decided we're no longer in, or they're no longer in this Parks District that we decided that we were going to form, and we decided how it's going to be set up, et cetera. So thanks.
All right.
All right, Ms. Brooks?
Is that the last one?
That is the last one, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else would like to testify, please let us know. Morning, afternoon.
I know, early
It's a long
evening, mid-afternoon. Chair Bernard, members of the board. My name is Kelly Brooks, and I'm the Assistant City Manager for Milwaukee. And unfortunately, my council has a conflicting meeting tonight. They're in their work session right now and heading into regular session, so they couldn't be here. So Wilda Parks in particular sends her regards and asked if I could make just a couple comments. So while it is pretty hard to watch $14.3 million leave the district when we know firsthand how much need is here, we do believe it's time to move on. Beyond the costs that have been spelled out in the settlement agreement, the conflict between Happy Valley and the district has absorbed countless staff hours and added risk and delay to plans and projects. A project, a bright light in this, that has been able to move forward during this time is design for Milwaukee Bay Park. And we believe that with the settlement behind you and in partnership with the City of Milwaukee, that this is an important project that we can advance to construction. So although the financial uncertainty around the impact of Happy Valley's departure is now known, and we think that's a good thing, we are now the only city, again, in the district. And we are in active conversations right now around structuring of the district advisory board. And so while one uncertainty is behind us, a new uncertainty begins in this next chapter. And what we ask you for as we're continuing those conversations is to recognize that the City of Milwaukee has been here from the beginning, a foundational partner, and that we do bring value and partner with you on projects to make things happen, to advance our shared priorities. And also that we focus on those partnerships to the extent possible so that we can make things happen for our residents, rather than attempt to potentially minimize the city's voice at that table. So those are our points here tonight. Thank you for staff for the heads up as this was coming down the line to let us know about this meeting tonight and the opportunity to share some remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the settlement agreement between the City of Happy Valley and the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
Is there a second?
You get a second? You want?
I'll second it.
You second? Okay.
So now, further discussion. I just want to make a couple of comments. One thing, prior to being mayor and as the mayor, I did serve on the advisory board for the Parks District. Mayor of Milwaukee, by the way, in case I didn't say that. You know, and we were struggling back then, and we were happy to have Happy Valley in the district. But I would say that things kind of went astray back in 2015 when we were working on the master plan. And I don't really remember, and I couldn't find anybody who knew a lot about, I probably could have asked you, Thelma, what happened to that master plan? It just kind of stalled out. We paid a consultant to work on that. I remember getting phone calls on it. We'd come a long way, and I think that the problem is that we didn't move that over the goalpost. And Happy Valley, I remember in that plan, a lot of neighborhood parks and issues were addressed. And I think the failure to move that over the goalpost really started this problem.
The SDC's gotten away too.
Yeah, they could have. But you know, I agree with you 100% on why cities and counties fight in the court when we could have done this a long time ago. I had an opportunity a couple of times to resolve this for less money. And we could have done that, but we couldn't get over that goalpost either. So, you know, I'm happy to put this behind us, but I think we need to talk about a different kind of district. I mean, reorganizing the district, maybe talk about, we did try a little bit to reform a district and with a little higher tax base. We also need a bond measure. We needed a bond measure. We could have done a lot of stuff with Happy Valley had we done that back when we said we were going to, but it never happened. And so there were a lot of problems that didn't get resolved, and I think they could have had we perhaps sat down at the table and really worked this out a long time ago. But we've had different boards, we've had different city councils, and somehow that, you know, we never quite got there. And I hope that in the future, we don't get into this position again. You know, recently, WES, our Water Environmental Services Advisory Council, was really struggling. We actually just resolved that a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, with Oregon City. C4 had worked a year and a half trying to do bylaws. And I stepped in along with the mayor of Canby, and we resolved that in a very short time. So we've come a long way, but we need to stick on the path of working together. Happy Valley's going to be growing. They're going to be a big partner. We have a highway that we're trying to get built, Sunrise Phase 2, and we're trying to address the environmental concerns that we've heard. But Happy Valley is going to grow whether we build that road or not, and it's going to be a mess out there unless we work together. Also, affordable housing. Happy Valley graciously agreed to 7% of their urban renewal district to build affordable housing, and they're also looking at parks now. They've got some money to build parks. So we've a lot of those problems that used to exist, we're going to put behind us now, and I look forward to voting in favor of this and working with the legislature to make sure that it passes. So with that, any other comments? No?
Yeah. Well, I guess, Jim, the history lesson is that when we put it out to the ballot for the vote for a different tax base to reform the district, that it was really a recipe that would have solved some of the imbalance and inequities in the district as far as parks. And ideally, perhaps the severely underserved areas wouldn't be as severely underserved as they remain today. So that's what happened. That's why the master plan didn't go any farther. I recall the history a little bit different, but we're not here to talk about history of other issues. We're really talking here about the agreement and the district and so forth. So I'm going to ultimately support what the board's decision here is today. I agree that it's time to put this behind us. I got involved in local government 21 years ago, 22 years ago, and experienced my first situation where governments were fighting governments, and I was really, really taken aback by that, still am, frankly. But now you inherit things, and you're part of solutions, ideally, and hopefully that's what we're part of here today. The last negotiating session did not go according to our plans, and so this is no reflection on Happy Valley's team, but in my opinion, we had a little bit of a misstep, and it led to an unfavorable outcome. I am in support of the staff that got us here. Ultimately, the outcome was compromised. The district was somewhat compromised, and I feel bad for the staff who prepared for the negotiations. They did all they could at the time, and also, on behalf of the district residents, I will not be supporting the agreement today, but I will be supporting the decision by the board today. I agree, it is time to move on, and I'm just going to keep my comments brief and not say no more.
All right. Any further discussion? Yeah.
Brief comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This has been a difficult time for our staff, and I want to commend them for hanging in there and doing their jobs, both in Happy Valley and in the rest of the district, in spite of the poor leadership on our part at the political level. It's unfortunate that we had to go to attorneys and waste, as Ms. Hagan Miller said, a great deal of taxpayers' money. But we are where we are today, and it's time to get it over with. And I will just end again with a compliment to the staff who've continued to work hard for the citizens of Clackamas County. You are to be commended for the work that you have done, and I thank you very much for that. And we will endeavor to get this over with and move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That's 4-1. So the motion carries. And I'll now announce that the board will adjourn as the North Clackamas Park and Recreation District and convene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of this 6-hour meeting. Okay, first I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have on today's consent agenda the settlement agreement between the City of Happy Valley and the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Well, first ask, would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda for the settlement agreement between the City of Happy Valley and North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Communications. Ken?
Nothing this evening, sir?
All right, thanks. Paul? Sonia?
No.
I'm surprised this is on the agenda. Would you like to communicate something?
Fine, thank you.
Well, I would. I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. I'd like to thank Happy Valley for working with us to put this behind us, and I'm planning on coming out to Happy Valley and to make sure you guys vote. And with that, we're adjourned.